Just in one thing, quick. So I have sent you an email with the questions which I'm going to ask, and
Yeah.
also the minutes for those questions. Ideally, you could prefer answering it. You can cut short it. Like let's say the max time frame is the one which I've given, which is 4 minutes or 3 minutes. So
Yep.
if you could just have the reference maybe in the background, so that we can just stick on to the timing.
Sure.
All right. I think we are live.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's give it a second.
There's a lot of background noise on your end, by the way. So just letting you know.
My end.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'll just try to switch it. Okay, how's it now? Better?
Same.
Give me 1 second.
I mean, you could probably get it cleared out in post production. That's well, yeah. Now it's gone because you're muted.
Okay, I'll try to find a spot maybe. Shall we kick started?
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay, so giving it a second. All right, so hi everyone. So welcome to today's webinar on from early partner wins to repeatable revenues. So that's what we're going to discuss today. I'm Deepak and I'll be moderating today's session, and I work as an ecosystem manager within SharkTerm. So SharkTerm is the one who has put up this webinar for us. So we have Justin as a speaker today, joining us from the US. So he's a partnerships webinar specialist and also the founder at Partner Playbooks. So who help teams move beyond one-off partner success to predictable and scalable revenues. So that's what he has done. So to set the stage today, many teams see early traction with partners, deals, say referrals, excitement, and everything at the beginning, but they struggle to turn that momentum into repeatable revenues. So today we will break down why that happens and how to fix it, basically. All right. So let's give it up for Justin. Justin, let's start at the beginning. What typically drives early partner wins, and why do they often feel easier than scaling them for you? And
Well,
with an introduction, maybe, so to say.
sure. Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Justin Zimmerman, founder of Partner Playbooks. I help companies specifically through multi-partner marketing drive predictable leads and results with a specialty in webinars and events. In fact, HubSpot has contracted with me to be their trainer and coach for their partner group of ecosystem tech and solution partners. I train them on how to do the things that I'm going to share a little bit with you here today. And so when I think about early partner wins, oftentimes the lowest hanging fruit is marketing. Previously, prior to AI, and probably still true to this day, product is slow, marketing is fast. Getting the right features built, deployed, and tested across your ecosystem to improve your integration, specifically if we're talking about B2B product partner webinar partnerships, then oftentimes starting with marketing is the easiest way to drive wins. Where I got my start was the use of webinars when I was previously the head of partnerships at an ISV inside the HubSpot ecosystem. And so it's very diagnostic to then look at your first wins in discovering partners based on a couple of criteria. And so if they're going to be a long-term partner, you need a long-term strategy. If you have a long-term strategy, then you need a long-term system and solution to provide predictable results. And so you just don't flip that on, turn it on right away, especially if you're a new company or a new team. You have to think about what is the incremental process to then having predictability. And that is discovery of good partners who are easy to work with, who enjoy doing the work with you, obviously share an ICP, and then most importantly, are capable and able to drive results. And so through events, through webinars, through co-marketing, you can very quickly test before you fully invest into then scaling those systems. And so that's what I do, coming up with small wins. Can they email their list? Do they have influencers within their orbit? And then vice versa, a partnership of equals is actually the best starting point for partnerships. A lot of companies try to go for the big ecosystem player, and oftentimes you're just not in a place of maturity, in a place of influence, a place where it's worth them working with you. And so oftentimes you're going to want to work with people at your level to build up that momentum, to build up those lead lists, to build up that particular partnership motion. And so as you go and grow, you'll attract bigger, better partners. But unless you have some sort of like asymmetric differentiator in your product that's missing in the ecosystem that makes you the go-to only competitor, non-competitor, you don't have competitors, then oftentimes you've got to seek other partners in the ecosystem and around the ecosystem, but not necessarily the main partner like a HubSpot or a Salesforce or whoever sits in the middle of the customer integration journey.
Okay, so that set the clear stage for the topic that we picked today, and that's amazing from Justin, right? So, Justin, as you come from the partner playbook, so you have set up things and processes and everything when it comes to partnerships, and that coming from someone who is seasoned in the field, and then the clear perspective on how things is set when it comes to setting things as the primary things when it comes to partnerships. Now that's really great, right? So thank you for that. Uh, let's go to the next part, which is basically to understand what typically drives the early partner wins and why do they often feel easier than scaling them. So is that the process or the initiatives or the enablement? What do you think is something which is very critical when it comes to the initial wins?
Yeah, like I was saying, an initial win comes from initially finding a good partner at your level who's willing to work with you, and you can drive those results together. And so I was explaining before that it typically falls on marketing that you're going to find those early wins, because usually you're in a place where the lift to create marketing materials is much lower than getting buy-in on the roadmap on two companies for integrations, getting those things tested and deployed. And so early wins is about speed. And oftentimes, if you're in a technology ISV type company, which a lot of people who in the space I work in are, that is the early starting point. You're not going to develop a co-sell program when you're early. That's complicated. That's big. Figuring out your own partner motion, figuring out your own sales motion, let alone figuring out how to then co-sell along other partners is just usually like 2, 3, 4 orders of magnitudes bigger than where starting is. And so on the scaling side, yeah, maybe you scale to having a co-sell motion when you have bigger price points and more sophisticated sales motions. But on the easier, more startable, easier, earlier partner wins, you're looking at the marketing end of things: webinars, co-marketing ebooks, co-creation of content, and then using each other's companies' own lists of influence, email marketing, and social to then see where the traction and where the results come from. So easy for me means fast, and fast usually means simpler.
Amazing. So easy is fast and fast is simpler. Amazing. That's rightly put, right? So thank you for that. So one of the question which comes to the scaling of businesses from the initial to a grown-up system, to so to say. So let's say building repeatability is something which most of the companies fail, and that's where we are today. So what needs to change is that you see for partnerships to move on from ad hoc success to a repeatable revenue motion, let's so to say. And also, a follow up question would be what foundation should teams put in place early so that it's been consistent and they deliver it consistently to be a repeatable revenue motion?
Yeah. So this is a question I've been working on for 3 or 4 years. Like, I started off in kind of the ad hoc partner to partner, campaign by campaign approach. And it's just kind of like, I don't want to call it a vicious circle, but you're just kind of going through the same motion essentially with a new partner every single time. And so it's just not necessarily a repeatable process in the sense of, without it's repeatable in the sense as long as you keep doing it, like going to the gym every single time you go to the gym. You're most people follow the gym subscription model to partnerships. Like, you only get results when you go, and like what really is possible is how do you get results when you don't have to run a campaign and build marketing materials and coordinate and schedule and align. Like, all the friction that goes into getting to market is what stands in the way of scale and repeatability. And so if you start to look at, well, especially with what's coming with AI, which I'm working on and I can't really necessarily speak to right now because I'm just getting started with it. But I'm starting to see the defrictionization of all the tasks and coordination that go into creating things for, with, and to partners. But not to get ahead of ourselves here. And so then, like, using what we've got right now is, again, if you start with what I said before, and you're looking at marketing to drive early wins, and then you're discovering 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 great marketing partners, because oftentimes it's always the 80-20. If you have 100 partners, 10 are going to be fantastic winners, right? So where are you going to invest your time once you discover who those 5, 6, 7, 10 partners are, right? And so then now in front of you, you have a very clear understanding of who can drive revenue, the personality type of the companies, their response rates, because partnerships is about understanding how to work with other people or entities that have people in them. And so partnerships on a personal basis is working with individuals. Partnerships on a more enterprise and business level is working with entities that have people in it. But in the end, you're still understanding like the politics, the people, and the processes at all these companies. And so once you discover kind of the personality of each of the partners, you've got your 10 top partners that you've discovered during the early wins because you've discovered who can drive traffic, who's easy to work with. And now you're really in a place like, okay, how do we stop rotating through this like list of partners and do something more scaled and more automated? And so what I've been building and putting into place, and I have a saying around most companies spend their time building products and integrating their products together for the market, but very few companies are actually understanding how to like build their marketing and sales systems to integrate with one another. And so when you start to understand that at the top of the funnel of every company has a top of the funnel, and every company has entrance and conversion points at the top of the funnel, demos, newsletters, webinars, all your typical marketing mediums, that if you start to design those in conversion points for discovery, for yourself and your partners. Now, when someone goes and registers for a newsletter on Partner A's site, if you have the right mechanisms and permissions and privacy policy, you can start to drive traffic, you can drive leads, and you can drive subscriptions to another partner. And if the other partner has the same setup. And so I've been working on how do you find your top 10 partners through that initial 6 months to a year of discovery work, if you're starting from scratch on who these great partners are, building up the momentum, building up the relationships, building up the social capital, and then structuring, after you've discovered who these people are, how to wire each other's sales and marketing funnels together. So that way you're not always having to run campaigns, driving email marketing, which is exhausted and everyone's doing it and it's hard to compete. But I'm doing very well with it, but I'm just saying, like, where are the other blue ocean, non-competitive, undercapitalized points of conversion and attention that you and your partners can build? And so this is actually what I teach inside of the HubSpot ecosystem growth accelerator program. Is once you discover your joint value proposition, you need a joint lead discovery and lead routing system. And so that's what then sits on top of this, so that we're just not always having to do campaign by campaign non-flywheel marketing. And so as an example, for one of my own events in my own ecosystem for my own partners, I've got 2 or 3 partners who very similar to, like, if you subscribe to like Beehive newsletters or something like that, you can actually design a process that I just through my own event, someone signed up, have maybe 1,000 people for my event tomorrow, and about 250 actually also subscribe to a sub event, not on my property, not on my time, to one of my partners who is running their own co-event the following week. And so did he have to write emails? Did he have to create a landing page? Did he have to do any heavy lifting at all? Not whatsoever. And so, like, there are these automatic flywheel traffic and partner source traffic and lead generation systems. And that's where I'm saying you need to put the attention on, that don't require that campaign heavy lifting, but you have to discover the partners and you have to discover your motions. And so that's where the initial like investment goes. But once you figure it out, and I'm giving you probably 12 months would probably be a realistic period of time to hustle and get that built, you can have that next level of scalability after you define viability.
Amazing. So when you say that, my understanding is that it's about the process and the, let's say, processes and the people and the ownership, that everything comes into place. And, it's not just about the process, right? So
It becomes a
that being
partner
said,
ops. It becomes a partner ops conversation. in a marketing ops and a
Right.
sales ops conversation. Because once you discover like you who are the great partners, and and you're seeing that those early wins in value, and you want to scale that without being stuck in that loop, you have to go to like the ops level and start talking to the teams at that layer and level, saying, hey, we want to do this. Here are the things and pieces and parts that we want to align and build and connect. I also happen to have an engineering and ops background as well, so I've built all this stuff myself, and so I understand that like there is a layer in most companies where you just can't, as a partner or marketing person, just go, unilaterally make these decisions and go make these
Got
changes
you.
across the sites. But people want the answer to how do I drive flywheel automated partner source revenue and growth. We have to have a system that takes it out of the hands of the individual limited person's ability to run 1, 2, 3 campaigns at a time, and then distribute that level of discovery and scale into the systems layer that lives at the sales and marketing layer.
Got you. Got you. That just sums up everything when it comes to ownership and processes and metrics and accountability. Very importantly. So that being said, how should teams think about ownership and measurement once partnerships matures? Let's say we spoke about the ad hoc and the initial stages. So what should it look like when it comes to ownership and measurements in terms of metrics when the partnerships actually matures? When you say that 20 out of the 100
Pipeline.
has actually worked out.
You start with your initial like score is going to be leads, and possibly and depending on the type of price point that you have, each product, $100 a month is different than a $50,000 a year product, right? And that also will change your which partner program you start with. I've been typically talking about maybe your SMB, maybe mid-market pricing. Like, how do you find the best partners in a particular price category in an ecosystem? And so, on the small end, you're going to start with, how do you measure success at all? Well, you're going to start with leads. And if you're a PLG motion company, you're going to start with trials, right? And then that's off into the hands of the onboarding team to convert, and they have their measurements. And then you're going to want to see, like, if it doesn't convert, then it's kind of the same sales and marketing alignment conversation. You can't just throw things over the fence and then say it's there, we hit our numbers, and not understand that there's the next category of numbers. But then ultimately it's about pipeline, right? And so you have to like understand each part of the conversion process, especially if you start at the marketing side. And so traffic generation, right? ICP identification and traffic generation, those have its numbers. Then you have your conversion mechanisms, ebooks, leads, website visitors into blog subscribers, whatever that is going to be. You want to understand what those numbers are. And then you have your next middle funnel conversion, whereas are you identifying ICP matches, and are you getting MQLs transitioning to SQLs? And then from there it's pipeline. But like there's a layer and spectrum of metrics that go into, and it's just your typical B2B SaaS metrics. But as a partner person, and this is where like our jobs are difficult, is like we're kind of responsible in some way for influencing all of those points, if not directly, if we're a small person, 1 person, 2 person team, actually doing and measuring, being measured and accountable for all of those. Because if one of those fails, right, then the ones downstream from it fail. But ultimately, you're going to start with testing with what you can control and what you can build and you can create in the moment, in the early stages of your partner program, and that's going to be leads and traffic. And then later stage, more mature programs, you're going to have a nice integration with your sales team or your partner sales team, and you're going to be influencing and driving directly attributable influenced revenue and pipeline.
That was spot on. That was spot on the pipeline aspect. So when you spoke about the product-led growth, which is the PLG motion, which we we're talking about, so one of the thing which follows in my mind is, so can you walk us through a real example, either a success story or common failure, where partnerships either became repeatable or stalled, let's say, for example?
Yeah, I mean, partnerships. So repeatability is, I mean, my whole partner playbooks business is about testing and building repeatable playbooks, and a very narrow, specific portion of them on my own. My whole goal with partner playbooks, almost like a laboratory for repeatability, is focused on what are those systems and what are those tools. And so for me, in my experience, building the partner program that I really wasn't empowered, enabled, and supported to do at other companies. I just went off and said, I'm going to go do it myself, and I'm going to go do this the way I believe it needs to be done. And so I've been iterating off of how do you get to flywheel and repeatability, kind of the same thing. I would say flywheel is more hands off. The more that I feel like flywheel is more of a network effect word, where like the more partners or the more traffic, the more results spool up and build. Where repeatability is, it's not necessarily influenced. It doesn't necessarily like grow with increasing network effects. It just kind of like, can you do it over and over again and get results of similar nature again? And so I think, the old world of repeatability is pretty easy. Like I said, that's campaign by campaign. Once you figure out campaign in a box, you just kind of repeat that box and that play over and over again. You cycle that through whatever new partner that you've discovered is a good partner to run that campaign with. And so repeatability and campaign and project, kind of all the same thing. But what we really want is that flywheel. And so that's where the hard part of the programming and that data layer I talked about, and that's much more further down on the maturity model, because like I said, you just don't get flywheel level results until you put in the grunt work of figuring out how to do repeatability. And so I think that's kind of the chasm, and the difference between the two is what you're saying is, where do they fall down? And that gap between repeatability and scalability / flywheel growth is, I think, the common issues for where they fall down is either company priorities all of a sudden shift and change, or they shift too much, and the person in charge of the campaign and the results and the KPIs isn't given enough time, isn't given enough resources, or are given too many distractions, and they're not able to focus on getting that one or two key things done in order to go from like undefined to refined, and then repeatable, right? And so like, to get repeatable, that's like, if you don't get to repeatable, you don't get to flywheel. You don't start with flywheel. And so the things that stand in the way are internal politics and internal resources, conflicts. That's kind of just your misalignments, not getting the buy-in. In fact, there's a really good article / ebook that just came out from partnership leaders in HubSpot called Getting Buy-in. You got to start with the buy-in. You got to start with the strategy. You got to start with the vision. If you don't start with that, and you don't use the language that I'm using right now to manage up, telling and explaining to the people who are hiring you to be the expert, they don't know about this stuff. It's your job to both explain and be the internal politician within your own company and then across other companies to get this vision set around. If we want flywheel growth, we've got to get to repeatability. And to get to repeatability, we need focus and resources. And so here's the plan, getting that buy-in on the strategy, both at your company and at the other companies. And once you have alignment and vision, we all know that you're going to iterate along the way. But if you don't have the buy-in initially, and what those initial KPIs of success are to unlock further trust and buy-in, the same way an investor will come into a company and they'll look for certain success metrics to make additional investments. This is the same thing. You're asking for, here's my business plan, internal companies and partners, let's invest in this. What does that look like? And so getting that buy-in first and foremost around what that strategy is that leads to repeatability, that then is the on-ramp to flywheel growth. And so that's kind of like what you have to come to the table with. You just can't say, hey, let's try this, let's try that, and then ad hoc your way to a sustainable scaled program is just not going to happen.
Amazing. So when it comes to software development, so there's something called as a software development life cycle, is what they say. Similarly, I suppose you have brought in a new perspective where something like a partnership development life cycle kind of sorts.
Sure.
So,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, that was amazing. So coming here, so we'll open it up for the questions from the audience. So feel free to ask Justin anything about scaling partnerships or driving repeatable revenue. You can just put in your comments in the comment section, and we'll take it up one by one. So as you do that, all right, let's go to the key takeaways from this webinar. Justin, if our audience remembers just 3 things from today, what should they be, when it comes to turning partner wins into repeatable revenues? Just 3 points maybe, and then you can elaborate if you wanted to on those.
Sure. Yeah. Start with a vision and get buy-in internally. Craft that vision and sell it across your partners. before you actually find those partners, you need to do your partner discovery, and you're going to just realize that starting up in a new partner program in a new company, you're going to have 3 to 6 months of discovery where there's going to be top partners and there's going to be lower tier partners. And marketing is a fast way to discover who's willing, able, ready, and capable to deliver results. So buy-in, partner discovery, test before you invest with marketing. And maybe for a fourth one is then once you have your understanding of who your top partners are, in order to go from you got to build to repeatability, and then the next step is flywheel growth, which then requires you're really then operating at the MarTech, partner ops, and sales ops level, and you need to prove what you're trying to do to those people to get buy-in across your company's tech layer, and then also being able to sell that to the other companies. So that way, without having to run campaigns over and over again manually, you can let the natural course of traffic generation and opt-ins on your site and their site to drive incoming inbound results for you and your partners' marketing and sales teams.
Amazing. So that's it. I suppose we covered every positive aspect when it comes to scaling from initial to wins, or maybe to an enterprise level grade on partnerships. So I suppose we have to just touch this segment, which could be a neem oil kind of thing for most of the people. So what's the one mistake do you think that most of the companies does when it comes to partnership failures? Like this is something which will address, or maybe I'll put it in a different tone. What's one mistake team should avoid, and one action they can take immediately, or effective their business after this webinar, let's say?
Yeah, the number one problem I see, think, and hear and experience is, like I already mentioned before, going after the biggest, baddest, hugest logo named partner as your starting point. If you're starting up a new campaign, a new business, a new partner program, you have to really look at what you bring to the table. Like I said before, those big companies, they get hit up every single day by every single partner, big and small, to go do something with them. And like I said, they're all limited in the amount of bandwidth, attention, and resources they can give to any one partner. I'm close with the HubSpot ecosystem. I've worked as a partner manager and partner director at ISVs within the HubSpot ecosystem. I now run my own partner program and my own partner business, and I actually consult, and they consult with me on how to do these things. And I hear every single day that, like, out of their 8,000 partners, they can work with like 20, right? And so what makes you think you can go up to the big, huge logoed partner within an ecosystem? You have to really be clear, like, you've got to have an incredible value proposition that moves the needle for them. And if you don't have that, then you're going to spin your wheels, spin your time, trying to network, get on the right calls. And ultimately, you're just going to be going back to the starting point. And that starting point is you need to find partners who are at your level, maybe a little bit lower, to work with, who can help drive traffic, attention, and results. And so build your marketing muscle up. There was a guy who said this a while ago, Nathan Latka, who runs Founder Path, which is a like B2B, I don't know, we'll call it a founding, it's financing an investment firm. And he has a quote that says, when customers watch you, partners will want you. And so that is the capital that is necessary to operate in an asymmetric environment. If you want to work with the biggest people, you don't have to be the biggest company, but you do have to have one of the bigger audiences and ability to drive attention and traffic. And so that's why HubSpot works with me. That's why companies work with me, is I'm a super small, teeny tiny company. But my event next week in B2B ecosystem has over 1,000 people registered. And so attention and traffic and influence can really move the needle, but you don't get to work with the biggest companies right away unless you start and have that level of influence. And so that's what I would say, is start small, build up your influence in the market and space, and then the timing will be right where you're in a place and position, if you've done that homework and made those investments into driving essentially like event-led, community-led / partner-led growth programs, that you'll be able to attract and work with big companies. Because behind the scenes, it's a big, huge, it's a bunch of people who are all just trying to hit their KPIs as well. And they need big numbers to help make those things move. And so if you can drive and deliver on those things, then you can unlock that level of partnership. But like I said, unless you're at that level, you've got some unique, huge, completely different differentiator as a product or service that doesn't exist in the market and their customers absolutely need at the product level and they can't get anywhere else. If you have that, then yeah, you're in the position to go product partner with the big companies. But then if you don't, you really need to think about what influence you bring and need to build that up with smaller partners to start with first.
That's like the perfect advice that we're looking out for. Thank you, Justin. So, Justin, so to sum up, correct me if I'm wrong. So, my understanding is that it's not just the early partner wins to repeatable revenue. There's one important step in between, which is like systems. Building systems could be metrics, could be the cyclability, which you said, and the other things like accountability and most initially, or I mean, as a final advice, you said like picking the biggest one to hit the first thing is. So these are the takeaways which I took from this webinar. Thank you for that. And in case if you wanted to just tell us something about your webinar, we'll just wrap it up with it. And also as a follow-up question, how do you see tools like short term putting these efforts coming in place together so that it acts as a one-stop solution for partnerships?
Sure. If you want to follow up and learn more about what I do and how I do it, go to partnerplaybooks.com. There's over 100 playbooks detailing many of the things I've said here and done, both by myself and a lot of the similar names and faces you'd expect from the industry experts to be sharing and talking about. On the site, you'll see all my upcoming events as well. So if you go to partnerplaybooks.com, you can subscribe, stay in touch, and join in those events. And then when it comes to PRMs in the space, I see how they're helping customers and partnership teams simplify the process of managing all the loose ends that go along with keeping track of the tasks and follow up and stages of deals. And so I know that they're just a key core bunch of features that every partner, every PRM must need and have. And I'm also watching the evolution of how AI is transforming each one of these PRMs into mini partner managers that can take on some of that grunt work that we previously had to manage and do ourselves. And so for those of you who are listening here, obviously you want to go check out SharkDom to see what newest best features they have available to help you streamline, automate, and potentially agentically take over some of those difficult and repetitive tasks. So then you can go focus on what really the future of partnerships is about, is discovering, like I said, new, better companies to work with to then go to market together and to not get bogged down in all the manual tasks. And so having a PRM like we just talked about in place to do that, I feel like the industry is going to continue to unlock or take on those tasks to give us partner people more time and freedom to really focus on what matters, is building those relationships and discovering great partners to go to market together and drive leads and results for ourselves, our partners, and our customers.
Amazing. With that, like, let's wrap up. Thanks everyone for joining, and do check out like partnerplaybooks.com for further research on partner playbooks. And that's it. That's a wrap. And one last thing which I wanted to tell is thank everyone for putting your time and effort to join us today. Stay connected with SharkTerm for more updates and more live webinars, and we hope the session gave you practical insights to move from early partner success to predictable, repeatable revenue. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks Justin.
My pleasure.